Hi, so this is an extension that allows you, so this is a Reviewboard extension that allows you to run some commands on a build or a test node that's configured somewhere else once a patch has been uploaded. It's pretty similar to the Travis integration that's available for GitHub, so any patches that you post for pull request automatically test run on that. So this is something that's similar for Reviewboard. The way you would do it is I have already installed this integration, so once you install this extension you would have to configure it for your repositories. So I'm going to hit configure and it will show me all the jobs that are already configured. So you can configure one job per repository. Right now I have 3 repositories and I have 2 of them configured. So this is one of my repositories. I'm not going to add one. I could show you, I could just edit one of these things, but it's pretty similar. Once I go and edit one of these things, it says that it gives some information about my repositories. It says what's the name of it in Reviewboard, what's my path, and what's the username, and then you could give some name for it. So I'm going to run some PHP. So this is a PHP project I've configured. I'm going to run a PHP unit test on it, so I'm just calling it something, and then you could enable it or disable it depending on whether you want this to be run or not. And then you give the information of the node where this thing has to run. So this is a box. I have a Vagrant based VirtualBox instance that's actually running locally, and this is the IP address of that, and all you need is to have SSH connectivity between the 2 nodes. Like the Reviewboard server and your build test node should just have complete SSH connectivity. At this point it's only Unix based because the technology underlying that doesn't support Windows yet. So you just have to give a username password. I don't have public key authentication yet, but I will build it soon. So at this point I just give what is the username password for me to connect to that, and then comes the commands that you have to run on the build node. So this is a base directory that you have to feed in where the checkout or the update has to happen. So you could like give a directory where, so if it's not checked out already, it'll check out, or it'll do a git clone. If it's already there, it'll do an update or a pull. So it works for Git public and Subversion repositories because those are the 2 that I need right now. So it would just check out or update depending on what the base directory is. Once you do that, there might be some files in your repository that you didn't check in but are typically developer parameters. Things like where is your local database instance, where's your secret key located, and all that stuff. So it's not something that you want to check it in because it's per developer configuration. So this section here allows you to upload all those files. So you can upload any number of files that will be copied to your checkout or your update. I mean, that will be copied after your checkout or your update happens. So in my case, I have a couple of files. I have parameters.yml where I have all my database configuration information. I have a phpunit.xml where I said I didn't want to run test coverage because it takes forever. The demo will take that long. So I can add any number of files. I can remove some of this, for example. I can just remove it, or I can add another file. I can keep adding any number of files that I want. So I could basically select a file. For example, I could select Ansible host and say I want to move this file to test somewhere. So I'm not going to run it, but I'm just showing how it can be done. So once this is done, then comes the commands that you want to run. So these are all the commands that I want to run on my test node. So I can enter any number of commands, all separated by a new line character, and I could even give multiple command sets. So and you would say which command set should run in which directory. So it can run the same as a base directory, or you can just like uncheck it and give it as a different directory. It doesn't really matter, but it just depends on where you want to actually run your things. So I can add another command, for example, in which case yeah, you can just like say I want to run test.php somewhere else, and then I can say this should run in a test directory, whatever. So it's just like basic sets of commands. You can add any number of them and they will all be run. So once you do all this and save it, your configuration is saved, and this is what is required for the repository. So once I do this configuration, any patches that are uploaded for that repository will trigger this build test node as long as the enabled is true, and the tests and the commands are all basically run, and the output is posted back to the review request. So let's see that in action. I'm going to go to one of my review requests, and I'm just going to update a diff. My diff is very basic diff, not doing anything more. So once I upload my uh, test this patch, and I publish it. Once I do this, I have it. This thing is running on Reviewboard. The extension is running on Reviewboard. So I have I'm actually trying to use an Ansible for doing the communication between the two nodes. So as you can see, this is like Ansible printing out what's happening. So it's trying to add the host to the inventory. So it knows that it has to add this box, and then it runs all the commands that we just configured there. So it copies the patch over to the build test machine, does a subversion checkout because this is a subversion project. It patches the sources with the diff. It copies those two files that we said need to be overwritten on top of the checkout, and runs all these commands. So it runs the update messages, it runs a couple of doctrine related commands, it runs a PHP unit test, and finally it removes a patch. Once it does all that, Reviewbot does the job of posting the changes back to the review request. So now if I come back to my review request, I can see that, so this is the patch that I just posted, this test this patch, and this is the output of the build operation. Some information here is not very informative. This is what Ansible gives, so I have to parse this to produce a better output. So basically all these SRCs are copy commands, and I need to make a better output of this. So but if you ignore that, the other ones are the subversion update was successful, the patch command was successful. So this is the file that it patched. So every file that's patched, so it applies either a patch or a git apply depending on whether it's a version or git, and it copies the two other files, and it ran all these commands, gives the output of what it is. So it says it resulted in output this, resulted in output this, ran PHP unit test, and then it was successful. In cases of failure, it's pretty similar. So this might be a failure. So this was a failure from my initial run. I didn't start my SQL, so it basically errored out saying that this cannot. So it basically gives you the output of whatever the tool writes. So we capture the output from Ansible and then report it back here. So that's it. So thank you very much for watching.